Hi, I'm Stephanie. I am going to tell you about Gabby Petito just from a normal person's shoes. I'm not an investigative reporter or journalist. I'm just telling you as a mom who took an interest in this case. A mom who's telling the story real quick while her baby is taking a nap, so I hope I can get through it. But Gabby Petito is a 22-year-old girl. She is from Long Island, New York. She met a guy in high school named Brian Laundrie. After high school, they dated. Prior to this whole incident that just happened, they had been together for over 2 years, and he was her fiance. And they had been living in Florida with his parents prior to this trip. On July 2nd, they took her van that they had turned into a camper and set off to go on a cross-country road trip. They went out west. They were in Colorado. They were in Utah. They went to Wyoming to the Bridger Teton National Park. By late August, things sort of got quiet from Gabby. Gabby was close to her family. They heard from her often. They FaceTimed. She would talk to her mom several times a week. She talked to her dad a couple of times a week. She even talked to her brother typically multiple times per week. And so when they quit hearing from her, it was obvious. She also had set out to become a vlogger, and she was starting a website, maybe with a blog. I'm not sure. It never got completed for us to see it. She did start a YouTube channel, and there is one video on there, and it's just about their van life and about their journey. And so that was sort of her dream. She is just super precious, bubbly personality, very pretty, very friendly, very warm, a lot of charisma. She's just very likable if you see her videos, full of life. Her dad talks about talking to her on the 21st of August. He said that he was helping her with her website, working out a technical issue with getting her email up and running, and he had sent her food through his Domino's app to the hotel where she was at that night. And then her mother had FaceTime with her maybe on or around August 25th, something like that. And August 27th, things sort of got weird. She sent a text to her mother that was strange. It just didn't sound like her. It was typical for her to lose service in these national parks. The 30th, they got another strange text from her that didn't fully make sense, but no one had seen her talk to her. And once they went into September, it became concerning. A week into September, no one had heard from her. Her mother hadn't, her father hadn't, her siblings hadn't. She had quit posting on social media since the 25th, I believe, before the 27th for sure. And they really felt like something was wrong. And so the family started trying to reach out to Brian. He wasn't responding. They tried to reach out to Brian's family, his mother, his father, his sister. None of them were answering calls. None of them were answering text messages. By the 10th, the family was saying, "Hey, we have not heard from the kids. We are really concerned. Have you heard from the kids?" And they're not responding. Gabby's dad said that he messaged the family, "Look, I'm going to call the police. Like, I'm worried about my daughter and our kids. We haven't heard from them." They tried to file a missing persons report on Gabby on the 10th, on September 10th, but it didn't go through until September 11th. On September 11th, the cops showed up at Brian's parents' home, and Gabby's van is there, and Brian is there, and he has been there since September 1st without Gabby. They had not called her family to let them know that he was there without her, and they would not provide an explanation of why he was there without her. Instead, they gave the police his attorney's phone number, and they refused to comply. He pled the fifth. And so this was very odd, very suspicious. The family started reaching out to the media. They started putting out public pleas. Everyone's looking for Gabby. Brian and his family aren't saying anything. They wouldn't tell them where she was when he last saw her. They wouldn't say what happened. Did they break up? Did they get in a fight? Did she leave with other people? Is she hurt? Is she by herself? What the cops did do is impound the van, take it in to, be processed for evidence. At this point, Brian wasn't even a suspect or a person of interest or anything. And so things start coming out. This takes off on social media and just becomes viral because, there's footage of Gabby. There are videos, there are photos, and it just, she becomes human to the world. And so people start trying to find her. They're looking for her. Some body cam footage comes out from these police officers. Gabby and Brian were in Utah. On August 12th, there was some sort of altercation, a domestic violence dispute that got called in, that a witness actually saw him hitting her. And the body cam footage is on YouTube. I'll post it in the description. But basically, the cops determined that she is the aggressor, not Brian, which I disagree with, but that is just sort of how it came out. And They don't arrest her. They decide that it's more of an emotional health breakdown rather than a domestic violence dispute. And basically, when they pulled them over, Gabby was hysterical and Brian was cool, calm, and collected. Gabby had a really hard time getting her story out, but she basically took the blame. She didn't tell them that he had hit her or anything like that. I feel like she was trying to tell them certain things, and they couldn't see past her hysteria. They credited her being hysterical having to do with mental health, which she did say that she had anxiety, that she was a little OCD about keeping her things clean. But I think that they took it as a real clinical mental health issue rather than possible trauma, like he might have been hurting her, before they pulled her over. So long story short, no one was in trouble with this incident. They separated them for the night and went about their business. And so that happened on August 12th. Some people online see this story. This girl, Miranda Baker, she's on TikTok, and she has this really great account of picking Brian up by himself hitchhiking in this place called Coulter Bay Village, which is in the Teton National Park. It's in the northern section of where he had been seen, and she picks him up from this area. She's got this crazy story that he offered $200 for them to drive him just a little ways away. He wanted to go to the Jackson area. His story was that his fiance was back at their camper and she was working on their social media page. He never said her name. They said some things that were suspicious, is that he offered so much money, and that he said that he had been camping away from her for several days. And he wasn't dirty. He was scruffy and not clean shaven, but he wasn't dirty. He didn't smell bad. He looked clean. He also didn't have a lot of things with him to have been camping for that long. He said he had just been sleeping on a tarp, but there wasn't a lot of things in the backpack to justify 3 days of camping. And so it was very suspicious. As they approached the road that would go to Jackson, there are 2 ways to get to Jackson, and they started to take the scenic route. And as soon as they took that turn, instead of taking the main road that he was probably looking for, this is just my assumption and what some people think, as soon as he saw them take the fork in the road, he started sort of freaking out and wanted to get out the car and hitchhike with someone else to where he wanted to go. So they let him off around a dam. I'll post links to all of her videos that explain it. She even shows a map that'll tell you much better. That was on the 29th in late afternoon. Around the same time, a girl named Jessica Schultz, she said that in the Spread Creek dispersed camping area, she saw him by himself in a white van, parking his van, acting strange, where she had to drive completely around him. He seemed nervous and not right, and that was on the evening of the 26th. And she saw his van in the same general area also on the 27th and maybe even on the 28th, if I'm not mistaken. I'll post her account also in the description. And she said, so from the 26th to the 28th-ish, she had seen him in this Spread Creek dispersed camping area, which totally lines up with that hitchhiking story. As soon as Miranda Baker went down the path that would have led away from that dispersed camping area, he wanted to get out the car. So that makes sense. So then the FBI puts out this request that anybody who was in the Spread Creek dispersed camping area from the 27th through the 30th, please look back on your footage, look at your cameras, think if you saw anything. They had a tip line, and I mean, this is just all over social media. I had been following this story by this part and just watching all this unfold. All right, so then around the same time, these family bloggers that were in that area around that time were examining some footage from the 27th. It's from the vlog, the YouTube channel Red, White, and Bethune. And I think the wife's name is Jen Bethune. And she had gotten a text message from a friend that said, hey, they're looking for information in that area on the 27th. I think you were there. And she said, actually, I'm looking at the footage right now from that day. And coincidentally, they had been driving in the Spread Creek dispersed camping area and had a GoPro on the dashboard, like a dash cam, with one camera facing the road and one camera facing her husband who was driving. And as she reviews that footage, she sees that white van on the side of the road in that area, in the Spread Creek dispersed camping ground. So, and you can see, I have watched this. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a pretty big skeptic. I'm a very sciencey person. But if you look at that footage and you look at some of the people who zoomed in with high def, you don't even need the high def. You can see it on her actual video. But as they first see that van, the back of that van door closes. I mean, it's open. It's clearly open. You can't see if anybody's in it or who's in it, but it is open, and it closes as they approach the van. And she slows the video down as they drive past the van. You can see what looks like Gabby's flip-flops on the ground at the door of the van. You can see a book and something else that you can't really tell what it is on the other side of the ground at the back door of the van as well. It's kind of dark. It's dusk. It's about 6:30 p.m. on the 27th is when this video was taken, and it's eerie. It's very suspicious. So when that came out, they had a place to look. Now, I think around this time, Brian becomes a person of interest. He's still not talking to the cops. I don't know where on the timeline what happened in the last couple of weeks, but I will say this, all of this sort of happened kind of meshed together. So this is coming out. Brian, she gets reported missing on September 11th. That's when the missing person was filed. But on September 14th, Brian takes off to go on a hike in the Carlton Reserve in California. It's near his parents' house. It's a huge 25,000 acre natural area that's protected. It's got tons, like 80 miles of trails. It's Florida's rainy season, so it's all underwater. It's like 75% of the park is underwater. It's swampy. There's wildlife. There are alligators and snakes and just tons of predators. And he just allegedly goes hiking there on a Tuesday. By the Friday, the parents report him missing. So he's just a missing person at this point. They're on a manhunt now. They're looking for Brian. They now have an area that they are looking for Gabby, and this is all probably in the same week. Where the van was in that video, they find Gabby's body less than 300 yards away from it. Gabby was ruled a homicide. She was dead. We don't know exactly the cause of death yet. We just know the manner of death, which is a homicide. But it was near the van, and it's really sad. Just really, really sad. So we should find out soon what exactly her cause of death is. Brian is still at large. They did go ahead and indict him because apparently they never said it's Gabby's, but there's indictment. I'll show a link to it and a picture of it here. The indictment mentions one debit card, one PIN number that accesses two bank accounts, all at Capital One Bank. Everything's linked. It sounds like he went to an ATM. It sounds like maybe he funded his trip home. I'm not sure, but he accessed a Capital One bank card, knew the PIN number, and accessed two accounts totaling over $1,000. So it is a federal felony charge. And these crimes took place on or about August 30th through September 1st. And they occurred in Wyoming and elsewhere. So this implies that he probably left Wyoming on the 30th. We know that he arrived back in Florida. It's been confirmed through multiple sources that the license plate was picked up in Florida on the 1st around 10:30 a.m., something like that. So there is an indictment. He is a fugitive. They are looking for him. Some other witnesses that have come forward. One of them is Nina Angelo and her boyfriend Matt England. They're from New Orleans, and they just came out the other day. They had evacuated. I'm South Louisiana also. We've all been displaced and evacuated for Hurricane Ida. And she said that they got back from Ida recently from evacuating, and she took an interest in this case, and her boyfriend saw the body cam footage of the police officer and Brian, and he said, gosh, we know that guy from somewhere. I know him. And she said that he couldn't just let it go. He just kept thinking about, where do we know Brian from? And she said a few days ago, he just woke up and was like, that's that couple that was arguing in the restaurant. And prior to this, the last time Gabby had been seen alive in person was at a hotel, I think around the 24th maybe, or 23rd. It had been a while. And I think her mother might have FaceTime with her on the 25th, but nobody had seen her since then. Well, this couple saw an altercation in a restaurant in Jackson Hole area at the Teton National Forest, not too far from the dispersed camping site, on the 27th around 1:30. They said that Brian was visibly angry and agitated, and Gabby was hysterically crying. And she went outside crying in the parking lot or on the sidewalk or something like that. I'll link the video here for you to see it. And Brian was very angry with the hostess. This couple doesn't know what they were upset about. I mean, this was just a blip in their day. You know, they didn't know these people. It was just something that they saw happen at a restaurant, that this guy is complaining to a hostess about something. The girl's upset. She said that Brian had walked outside and back in like 4 different times, complaining to the hostess and to the manager, and he was just really hostile and aggravated. But they didn't quite know like what had happened. It was a loud, noisy restaurant. A lot of people online tore Nina up for coming forward. They acted like she was just trying to get famous and that she was lying, but actually the restaurant has confirmed it. A manager has confirmed it. They confirmed that they were there, that there was an incident that occurred, and they're not giving out any more information, but they are cooperating with the FBI. So people need to leave her alone. She was just telling the truth and trying to help. So she said that he was never violent with her. He wasn't like being mean to her or anything like that. They were just both visibly upset. So that was on the 27th at 1:30. And again, that's the same day that the van video showed the van with the door closing around 6:30 p.m. So something could have happened in between that time. And then he went hiking up to Coulter Bay Village at some point. I mean, who knows? But that was also said as well. Another person who came forward, this is the last one that I'll mention, is Norma Jean Jalovic. Norma Jean claims that, and I do believe her, she said that she picked up Brian hitchhiking after he got out of Miranda Baker's car. So remember, Miranda Baker dropped him off around the dam when she turned to the scenic route to go to Jackson. The Jackson Hole, Jackson, it's all kind of the same thing in this area on this map. And Norma Jean said that she had gone to a 5 o'clock mass or she was going to a mass, and where she picked him up was like a mile or 2 away from that church. And she said he got in the car and he basically had the same story, that his fiance was back in the van working on her social media page, that he had been camping for a few days. She had this really dramatic twist in her story where she took a curve and her Bible slid off the dashboard onto his lap, and like he picked it up for her, which is really kind of ironic. But she said that he was really nice and pleasant. He offered her gas money and she didn't need any, and he wanted to be dropped off at the gate. And she said that he as soon as they got to the dispersed camping gate, she brought him to Spread Creek dispersed camping, and as soon as they got to the gate, he was like trying to get out of her moving vehicle. He wanted out of the car. She joked and said, "Oh, do you want to impress your fiance by hiking up to the campsite?" And he was just like, "I want to get out now." And so he made her drop him off right then and there, and she thought that was odd, like their encounter ended oddly. But that was the last account. And so right now they are aggressively searching for him at this reserve. They're watching the parents. The parents right now, they all have this attorney that's in New York. He just came down to Orlando to meet with the parents, and they've been pretty much holed up in their house. There's press all over their house. There's a vigil tonight for Gabby in Northport, Florida, which is where the parents live and where Gabby lived, right before all this happened. And I think her funeral is this weekend in New York. So just a really sad story. She's just really grabbed the hearts of so many of us. If you want to know more information or you want to get involved, there are some Facebook groups of people that are combining tips, and there's a lot of nonsense to pick through, but there's also some really good conversation in there as well. You can also follow several different people on YouTube and on social media that are reporting on all of this. I will link all of that in the description in case you're watching this and you want to know more or you want to stay plugged in to get updates. I hope this answers a questions that you might have had just about this story. I will post some other videos with other details that maybe go into more of these witness accounts in more detail, or maybe even tell you a little bit about what I'm thinking about the case. Of course, I don't know. It's all speculation, but I'll be happy, to do that, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Just drop them in the comments, and I'll get to as many as I can. All right, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.